Како што ви најави во моментот во Американската амбасада во Скопје, имам честа да разговарам со амбасадорката госпоѓа Анџела Агелер, ќе разговараме за сите актуелности и во нејзината матична земја и во нашата матична земја. Madam Ambassador, thank you for having us on this special occasion.
Thank you so much, Bogdan. I'm really delighted to chat with you and have a chance to meet for the first time.
Thank you. Is this your first time on Alpha TV?
It's not that my first time on Alpha TV, but it's my first time talking to you on Alpha TV.
Hopefully not the last.
Hopefully not the last. Let's see how this goes.
Oh, okay, great. Tell me, have you already sent your absentee ballot?
Absolutely. I did about, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think it's one of the really important, and I'll even say sacred duties and rights and privileges of a citizen to vote. And so I definitely did that. I'm a resident of the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., and so I was very, very happy to submit my vote by absentee ballot.
Yeah, you send the similar messages on our elections here. I mean, the last elections, that it's very important for the people to get involved in the process and vote. Can you make a comparison on other levels between the elections in the States and the elections that you've seen many elections around the world, but we're talking about Macedonia, regarding some similarities or differences besides the electoral system. It's quite different, we know that, but the media coverage, the relations between the people before, during the election season, although in the States it's quite long. I mean, the campaign starts a year and a half before the elections. But about the atmosphere in the society.
Yeah, you know, first of all, 2024 has been an amazing year for elections, right? I mean, I think at one point I read somewhere that over 70% of countries in the world were having some form of election this year, and there were then EU elections, and so we've seen a lot of focus on that process, and the fact that even though different countries and organizations handle elections differently, it's been a great study for democracy. This year has really been sort of a master class in how different countries manage their elections. And what we also see, and I think this is important, and I talked to a number of your colleagues about this, is the difference between the kind of language that one hears during a campaign versus the kind of language that we hear after a government is elected. And so the first and most important thing is, again, that the citizens participate. And I've always personally felt, Bogdan, that I really don't have a right to complain unless I voted. Because then I can...
on the same page.
I mean, I think if you're going to participate in your democracy, then you have a right to voice it. And I frankly get a little bit tired of people who say, I'm not going to vote, but I'm very angry about X, Y, or Z. And so I think that dialogue between the citizens and those they choose is a really important one. And we have seen in this country and other countries around the world how that dialogue shifts once a government gets into place and starts to govern versus how they spoke when they were campaigning.
It's quite different, of course. The responsibility, for instance, it's not non-existent during the campaign, but it's quite different when you're in charge of 2 million or 250 million people. But are you surprised by the interest that people in Macedonia, for instance, have for the American elections? I mean, a big part of the nation, I believe, sees them as some big event, which is globally, of course. But there is quite a big interest in, and people get to pick a side. I'm for Trump. I'm for Ms. Harris. How do you see that phenomena?
You know, I talked to many other ambassadors in Europe and in the Balkans especially, but I have friends around the world. And I honestly feel like most of the world right now is waiting to see what happens with our elections. There will be a change of administration. And this is one of the important things, is that because President Biden withdrew, and supported his vice president, that there is going to be a change. And so people are very interested in what that means. And it's one of the things that...
They ask you for opinions, I guess.
Yeah. What's going to happen if so-and-so? And what about if so-and-so?
That's why I'm here also.
I know. And you know, first of all, I don't know that there has been an election that is this close. Perhaps there has been in American history, but certainly not in my memory. And so you can look at the polls every day, and I have to confess to you that I'm kind of a polling junkie, which is not a very healthy thing because polls aren't necessarily trustworthy in all cases.
Sometimes they're used as a propaganda, but...
Exactly, and sometimes they're just flat wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, and we've seen that not only in the United States, but in other countries and here as well. So, so you can obsess about those, as I sometimes do, but at the end of the day, whatever happens on Tuesday, first of all, we may not know who's won for some time.
Yes.
And so people are watching with great interest, as are, I think, almost every single citizen of the United States to see what happened.
The last time former President Trump confronted a lady at the elections was 2016, and I remember then one of the key points of his campaign was America First. I honestly, I don't quite remember if in 2020 he was talking about America First, but now the subjects which are talked in the campaign are more domestic problems, immigration, illegal immigrants, ban of abortion, yes or no, etc. I mean, the main talking points are not connected to the American foreign policy.
Right.
But we are most interested in the elections because of because of that. Do you have any glimpse, maybe, what might change? Because, there will be a new administration, either under Ms. Harris or under Mr. Trump. What do you expect as an American ambassador in a distant country? What might happen one way or another after the election?
Well, I think, and that's a great question, and you framed it perfectly, because I think, again, this goes to what people talk about, again, whether it's in the United States or here, is almost always focused on domestic issues. You want to talk to the voters where they live. You want to talk about the issues that they care about, and generally speaking, most voters in any country are concerned about what we call in the U.S. kitchen table issues. It's the economy, it's jobs, it's opportunities, it's education. And those are the things that I hear from people in this country that they were also focused on during the elections. Then when you actually begin to govern, you look at things like, how are we dealing with foreign policy? So I joined the Foreign Service 26 years ago, was when I became a diplomat. And I have served under 5 presidents, and in that period, as as they've gone back and forth, parties have gone back and forth. They've swapped in that period. And I've worked for 8 secretaries of state. And so while I can't necessarily give you a glimpse into the future, I can tell you that based on my own personal experience as a diplomat serving overseas, foreign policy really doesn't change that much. I know there are those who don't particularly like that answer and think that if we get one or the other, that this is dramatically going to change our trade policies or these sorts of things. And the answer is, so far, at least in the 26 years that I've been following this very closely, it really hasn't. So my expectations of how we interact with this government and with the citizens of this country is that we will continue to work on the issues based on the values that we all share together and that work for both of our countries.
Let's learn from the history narrative. It's perfect to get into the domestic political talk about the Macedonian political reality and our EU integrations, etc., because we actually do have a history problem in our
well, you have a lot of it.
Yes. We have a lot of history here, so but, probably neither country can comprehend the amount of history which it thinks it owns rights to. But nevertheless, the goal of the United States is regional stability in the Balkans. Can we have a regional stability in the Balkans without a fully incorporated Western Balkans in the EU?
I think that's really an important question that I know many people really grapple with. It is frequently said that those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. And I think that's an important thing to bear in mind as we look at what has sort of brought us to the point where we are today. But even more importantly to me is how do we take that history and learn from it to move forward? Because history can be a great tool and a great resource. It shouldn't be a burden that holds a country back. And frankly, I see many, many in this country, in North Macedonia, who are very keen to take those lessons and move forward. And I truly believe very strongly that the successful, secure, prosperous future of this country lies in the European Union. You're in the heart of Europe. And that trade, opportunity, security is enhanced by formalizing that relationship. Now, is it hard? Has this country faced more challenges to that aspiration than any other? Yes. And I know that difficult decisions have already been made, and that high prices have already been paid by the citizens of this country. But I hope that taking those lessons will help them support and urge the government that they elected to move towards and further along the European integration and Euro-Atlantic integration.
Madam Ambassador, I would like to ask you a question and require an answer from a human perspective. Because I guess, I mean, you work, you have your briefings, you have your meetings with the different politicians from Macedonia, with the media. I'm not sure if you have the time to have some chit-chat interactions with regular people on the street. But do you understand our fears and frustrations from a human perspective about that after all these years, Macedonians feel insecure, feeling that we don't have the full circle when our statehood is in questions, that we're being negated not just at home but everywhere around us. Macedonians have problems in Greece, in Bulgaria, some specific problems in Albania and Kosovo. From a human perspective, do you understand our fears and frustrations about the national questions?
I believe I do. I can never understand it to the extent that a citizen can, but at every opportunity, and this is the second time I've served here in Skopje, and I had the great benefit of arriving as ambassador with many friends that I had gotten to know when I was here previously, including a lot of journalists, because I had been the public affairs officer. And I so enjoy traveling around the country. Yesterday, I was in Negotino and at a farm outside of Negotino. I was speaking with women farmers, and then I had the great opportunity to speak with a group of young people who were studying media literacy and had a debate club. And we're talking about activism and other issues. And this is one of the things that I hear from, as you say, as one human being to another, that very real frustration, some anger, some fear about where does it end. I hear that everywhere I go. And I do understand it, and I also recognize that there is a sense of having already given so much and changed the name, changed the flag, done these other things. And questions from young people about their, what's in it for me? Why should I stay here? What is this country offering me if we, have yet another obstacle to getting into the European Union? So I do hear that, and I really understand it as deeply, I think, as a foreigner can. And I also believe that the solution is to get in, is to get into the European Union. Take your rightful place within that organization so that you and all of the other citizens can reap those benefits. And I think that's incredibly important.
While we're on the subject, one last question regarding our EU integration. Great to hear that you do have the time to speak with everyday normal people. Have you seen or sensed anywhere that in Macedonia somebody discriminates other people or has some issues regarding the, let's say, Bulgarian minority in Macedonia, which we are being kind of accused of some political centers in Bulgaria? Because me, as a native here, my opinion is totally different. We don't have problem with anybody living here in Macedonia. What is your view on that subject regarding the possible eventual discrimination against, let's say, Bulgarians in Macedonia?
Thank you for asking me that. And I will tell you that personally, I have never witnessed it. And we have certainly asked a lot of questions about whether or not others have experienced it that they would like to share with us. I have not. That's, you know, in any society, in any community, there are people who are willing to be kind of nasty about other human beings.
Of course.
And there are those here in this country, just as there are in the United States. But the majority of people of this country are warm, generous, caring, very embracing, and I have never experienced that. And I have never seen anything but people around this country being very open to others from any other culture, including the United States.
The very fact that you came back here after after 10 years, I mean, it speaks about us that you like being here, right?
You know, I love this country. I have grown to really, really care about it and care about the people of this country.
What is the biggest change you've witnessed in those 10 years apart? You worked here from 2010
to 2013,
then came back in 2023.
Yeah. You know, it's fascinating because...
besides Skopje 2014, okay.
Yeah. Well, that had started before I left. Yeah, that's a separate conversation probably, but...
Next time we'll talk about architecture and music, okay?
Okay. You know, it's so fascinating because something, and I continue to follow the country even when I wasn't here. It is so fascinating to me because some things are very different. I mean, you got into NATO. When I left in 2013, I honestly did not see a path forward for changing the name. And the issue with Greece was still there, and I thought it's never going to happen.
The Bulgarian issue never existed?
And yeah, that hadn't come up. And so, it was really such a triumph to have this country join NATO. And since joining NATO, North Macedonia has been an incredible partner and ally. They have contributed, they were the 4th per capita contributor to Ukraine assistance, and have really stepped up and offered an enormous amount. And I firmly believe that when you do join the European Union, it will be the same thing, that you are great partners. And so, you know, we just want to do what we can, as a non-EU member, of course, to do what we can to support those hopes and wishes.
You mentioned that earlier in some other interviews that you never imagined living the country in 2013 that we'll get to the name change. Maybe our neighbors got used to that, us being ready to make big sacrifices. Yeah. But the way things stand now are different than 1 year ago. Yeah. We had elections, people chose a new path, new way, so we'll see how it goes. What is your first impression of the new government? We can talk about it now. It's maybe 4 months.
Yeah. Probably, they've gotten
exactly
through the 100 days.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, in my interactions and on a number of issues that are very important to us, and important to us because the people of this country have told us these are the issues that are important to them, I have found great cooperation. I've found a willingness to be receptive to our ideas, which are not always the same as the government.
Of course. No.
But I have never found that the Prime Minister, the President, or any of the ministers are unwilling to listen. There are still enormous challenges. And I think as we look at some of the openness towards trade, towards infrastructure, towards energy has been really, really very, very strong. But there's still a lot of work to do on corruption, on the judiciary, on rule of law, on education, and also in the health area, I think. So there's a lot to be done.
Yeah, my wish is that those were the main topics regarding our EU integration, to talk about actual problems and solutions to them, not about the medieval part of the history.
And I think you're right. That's what people want to talk about. They don't want to talk about what happened 1,000 years ago, or even 200 years ago.
Yeah.
They want to talk about today.
Let's hope that we will be brave enough. What was it? Land of the free, home of the brave. So we get to live our freedom the way we want. At the end of this interview, I would like to ask you, you've been around the world during your missions. From what I've read, Pakistan, Vietnam, France, India, Burkina Faso, Hungary, Central African Republic. But one thing was more interesting for me in your biography, that before you started working in the State Department or the voluntary mission in Central Africa, you worked in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C.
I did.
So you've painted Macedonia as a picture. What would have been? I saw there's an impressive collection over there. So you've worked surrounded by
incredible.
Even Da Vinci, the only Da Vinci in the States, right? Rembrandt, the other Flandrian, Italian, French masters. What picture would Macedonia be? Would it be Guernica, or would it be Dali's persistence of memory, or maybe some perfect Rembrandt?
A perfect Rembrandt. You know, that's a great question. I've never been asked that, and I wish I'd had more time to think about it. But I will tell you, I was just in Vienna, and I had the great privilege of going to a Rembrandt show at the Kunsthistorisches Museum, and it's very wonderful. If you get a chance, I highly recommend it. And I also had the great opportunity to go to a Chagall show that's at the Albertina. They have wonderful museums there. And I would suggest that that maybe this country is almost a Chagall. Perhaps not a Rembrandt, because that's a little more traditional. And the reason I say that is that one of the things that I think is so captivating about Marc Chagall is his history.
That's right.
He was a Jew from an area that is now in Belarus, had very, very challenging life experiences, suffered in many ways through his whole life, and yet there is a kind of whimsy and poignancy to his art that is really captivating. And there's both a combination of some sadness and disappointment that's combined with this beauty of hope. So I think you're a Chagall.
I only imagine how would you have answered if you were ready for the question. Great answer.
I'm going to have to think about it.
Thank you for it. The last question. If we imagine better future being treated fairly by everybody else around us and everybody in the organizations to which we aspire, having in mind the motto "Imagine Then Do" from University of Utah, right? What should we do to get that better future with fair treatment, as per your point of view?
Yeah.
Like a message to the Macedonian people.
It's to do what it is that you want to do. Do the things that make you feel positive and feel that you are providing the best opportunities for your future and the future of your family. do what you need to do to make sure that your kids have the opportunity that this is a country where even if they leave for a few years or they go to school in the States or whatever it is, that they want to come home. That they want to come home and bring their expertise and knowledge back to North Macedonia and to be the future leaders of this country. That's what I hope for this country.
I think it's enough for this interview. I mean, I qualified myself to get another one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Architecture, music, and...
Yeah, architecture might be brief.
Thomas Jefferson was an architect.
He was.
Yes, he
Monticello.
was.
Have you ever been? It's great.
I think he designed university complexes.
Yeah, University of Virginia.
Right, University of Virginia. So we can talk about
okay,
that
that's next time.
Madam Ambassador, it was a pleasure having you on our program. So until the next time, good luck. I mean, to you and everybody in the States on the elections. I hope everything turns fine, whichever way it turns. So
I'm sure it will.
Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for having me.